Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, we love digging into the really complex stuff here, and today we're diving into some pretty murky waters with, you guessed it, Julian Assange. Specifically, his recent appearance at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe.
Right.
And that statement that's got everyone talking that he pleaded guilty to journalism.
Yeah.
Journalism on trial. That's a heavy one.
It is.
So no secondhand interpretations here. We're going straight to the source, information directly from the Council of Europe's website.
Good.
To help unpack all this, I'm joined, as always, by our expert. Let's start basic for anyone who might not know. Who is Julian Assange, and what's he doing at the Council of Europe?
Well, obviously, he's best known for WikiLeaks, the platform that published all those classified documents.
Right.
But this hearing wasn't about rehashing the whole WikiLeaks saga. It's centered on Assange's detention and what it could mean for human rights, particularly press freedom.
Okay, so big picture stuff.
Huge. This is a big deal for the Council of Europe, and it represents 46 member states.
So Assange's argument is, I'm being punished for doing what journalists do.
Essentially, yes.
But he's charged under the Espionage Act, which usually covers spying, right? Not exactly investigative journalism.
Exactly. The U.S. government's case is that he conspired to obtain and disclose classified information related to national defense.
And that's where it gets tricky.
It does. See, the Espionage Act, while mainly aimed at, well, espionage, doesn't specifically say journalists are off the hook.
So hypothetically, publishing anything that could harm national security, even if it exposes something bad, could be espionage.
That's the debate. The act doesn't distinguish between leaking to, say, help an enemy versus leaking because it's in the public interest. And that's where Assange says he stands.
That's a fine line he's walking, legally speaking.
Yeah.
Has the Espionage Act ever been used like this before?
This is unprecedented, targeting someone like Assange, who essentially acted as a publisher. Past cases usually involve people who directly stole and handed over information, often for money or to hurt the U.S.,
So Assange is making a big and possibly risky legal play by calling his actions journalism. What about this journalism on trial angle? The Council of Europe seemed to have a strong reaction to that.
Oh, they absolutely did. They were seriously concerned about the implications of this case. They didn't just sit back, they released a whole resolution based on their investigation.
Did they pick a side?
Not directly. They didn't say if he was innocent or guilty, but they did express deep concern about his treatment. Their argument is that it could have a chilling effect on journalism globally.
Okay, so strong words already.
It gets stronger. They went so far as to say that his case might fit their definition of a political prisoner.
Well, a political prisoner. That's huge coming from an organization all about human rights. What makes them use such a loaded term? What about this case has them so worried?
It comes down to what happens to press freedom if he's extradited and convicted. They're basically saying this could set a precedent, make journalists think twice before publishing leaks, even if it's the right thing to do.
Which brings us to the big question. What is the chilling effect? How could this case impact reporting on sensitive topics moving forward? And what happens to whistleblowers if journalists are too afraid to publish?
Those are the million-dollar questions. And that's what we'll be dissecting further in this deep dive.
Okay, so we're already seeing how this is bigger than one guy's legal problems. This has huge implications for journalism and whistleblowing worldwide.
Yeah, you're right. This isn't just about Assange anymore.
Right.
It could impact journalism in a big way.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the types of information that get leaked,
Right.
National security secrets, internal government documents, corporate wrongdoings. These are the stories that often depend on those leaks.
It's like, where do journalists draw the line? You have a duty to inform the public, but you could be prosecuted under laws meant for spies, not reporters.
Right, and let's not forget the sources themselves.
Oh, right, the people who actually leak the information.
Exactly. They take huge risks, often because they believe the public deserves to know the truth.
Yeah.
If they see Assange being prosecuted, what message does that send?
Yeah, it could totally discourage potential whistleblowers from coming forward.
Exactly. They might be afraid of facing the same fate.
It makes you wonder if some of the biggest stories would even exist today.
Like what?
Watergate, the Pentagon Papers, the Panama Papers.
Right.
These were all based on leaks, and they had a huge impact.
They did.
But imagine if those journalists or sources hesitated because they were afraid of legal battles like Assange is facing.
It's a scary thought.
It is. It's like those stories would have been silenced.
And that's the chilling effect in a nutshell. Journalists might avoid publishing certain stories even if they believe it's in the public interest because they're afraid of the consequences.
So it's not even censorship, it's self-censorship.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
much more subtle and insidious.
So it's not just about what is published, but what isn't because of this fear.
Precisely.
What kind of stories are we missing out on because of this?
Think about it. Let's say you're a journalist looking into corruption within a big company.
Okay.
You get a tip from a source, someone on the inside with documents and everything.
Okay.
This could be huge, but it's also very risky.
Right. Especially if those documents are confidential or weren't supposed to be shared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now imagine you're in that situation with the Assange case in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Do you publish the story and risk being sued or even prosecuted?
Or do you stay silent and protect yourself, but bury a story that the public needs to hear?
Exactly. It's a tough choice. And that decision to self-censor has implications for everyone.
Right. If we're not getting the full story, if the truth is being hidden, how can we function as an informed public?
It's a slippery slope, and that's why this case is so important.
Yeah.
It goes beyond Julian Assange. It's about the core principles of press freedom and the public's right to know.
It's about finding that balance between national security and accountability.
Exactly. And that's not easy.
No one's saying journalists should be able to publish anything they want.
Right.
But at what point do legitimate national security concerns become an excuse to silence criticism or important reporting?
It's a question with no simple answers.
It's a question that every democracy has to wrestle with, for sure. It's like we're talking about two fundamental rights that are kind of at odds, you know?
Right.
The government's right to protect secrets and the public's right to know what's really going on. So how do you even begin to find that balance?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a debate that's been raging for as long as journalism has existed, really. You have to consider the potential harm of making certain information public. Like, could it put lives at risk? Could it jeopardize national security? Those are serious concerns.
Absolutely. There are definitely times when some level of secrecy is necessary. But when does it go too far? You know, when does that secrecy start to erode public trust? When does it undermine, like, holding those in power accountable?
You hit the nail on the head, and that's what makes this whole conversation so crucial. We need to be having these discussions, debating these issues, and figuring out as a society where we draw that line. Because
at the end of the day, this isn't just about journalists or whistleblowers, is it? This is about all of us.
Exactly.
It's about our right to be informed, to hold our leaders accountable, to have, real debates about the things that affect our lives. If those in power can just operate in secrecy without any oversight, it undermines the very idea of a democratic society.
Couldn't agree more. A well-informed public is essential for any functioning democracy. When information gets suppressed or when journalists are afraid to challenge the official narrative, it creates this void. And that void is often filled with, misinformation, propaganda, distrust. It's a dangerous road to go down.
And that brings us right back to Assange, right? Regardless of how anyone feels about him personally or about WikiLeaks and how they did things, this case brings up these massive questions about the future of journalism, about the free flow of information.
Absolutely. As his legal battles drag on, it's crucial that we're paying attention not just to the outcome, but to what it means for everyone else. What kind of precedent is this setting? What message does it send to journalists who are covering sensitive stories? What about potential whistleblowers?
Those are the questions we need to be asking. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's put you in the hot seat for a second. Imagine you were on that parliamentary assembly, faced with this incredibly complex issue, the potential consequences for journalism, for whistleblowing, for free speech itself. Knowing what you know now, how would you have voted?
It's a tough one, no doubt. It really makes you examine your own beliefs about the balance between security and transparency, about the role of journalism in holding power accountable. There are no easy answers.
It's about understanding that this case, as huge as it is, it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. This conversation is far from over. We hope this deep dive has given you a lot to think about. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep with us.